Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wensveen.
Hi, and welcome to another great edition of Sunshine Startups Live. I'm investor, entrepreneur, and host of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan. I'm joined by my good friend, John Wensveen. John, great to be with you again, my friend.
Great to be with you, Jim, and welcome to the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs. John Wensveen, Chief Innovation Officer at Nova Southeastern University and Executive Director of the Levan Center of Innovation, where we support the founder's journey from birth of an idea through successful exit or global expansion. This is one episode I am looking forward to. You don't know this, Jim, but I have one of my heroes sitting around the table today.
Well, and soon to be one of my heroes as well, and I'm sure for many others, as Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, who's had an extensive career on the cruise industry over 3 decades, an amazing entrepreneur, and she's here to share some wisdom, some expertise, talking about her new book as an author of Making Waves, which I'm very excited. We have a copy here and soon to be on Amazon. And we're going to talk about how Lisa has made waves in her experience and share some of her expertise and perhaps some nuggets of wisdom to those entrepreneurs that are watching today that are looking for leadership tips. So, Lisa, thanks so much for carving out some time and joining us today on the podcast.
It is my absolute pleasure, Jim, and John make me blush. But thank you so much from one of my heroes. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you, gentlemen. Great to be here.
I'm glad you said blush because I actually made someone cry on stage the other day, the first time he ever did. So, yeah. So I'd
in a good way or a bad way?
It was good. It was good.
Okay,
It was all
right,
good. Yes,
all right,
100%.
Okay. Man or woman?
It was a man.
Really? Wow.
I have 2 claims to fame. I've made 2 people cry on stage. One was the former governor of Indiana, later vice president of the United States, and then this individual who is world-renowned for his leadership skills and models that he's been building, where he works with all the Fortune companies of the world and the United Nations, and something hit him and he cried.
Oh, wow. Well, don't do that to me today, gentlemen. All right?
So we'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll share some experiences.
Okay.
And so it's great that you're here today and
Thank
very
you.
excited that you were able to take some time out. And we're going to talk about making waves,
Okay, good,
of
great.
course. But I think a lot of our listeners are going to want to hear about the Lisa Lutoff-Perlo story, about your background, what brought you? I know you were originally from the Northeast, and like many folks have made the migration here. What was sort of the inspiration to come to Florida? And so I want to wind the clock back a little bit about hearing about your background. Can you share that a couple minutes with us on that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. As I say, I'm just a small town girl. And I grew up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is celebrating its 400th year as the oldest seaport in the United States, founded in 1623. Growing up, the town was, and predominantly still is, a town of Italian and Portuguese fishermen. And at that time, it was fishermen. It took decades for women to start getting into that occupation. So most of the kids I went to school with, their dads were fishermen. My parents were not. I'm not Italian or Portuguese, and they opened coffee shops and restaurants in town. And as I always say, it's quite serendipitous that I ended up in hospitality on the ocean, given that I grew up in the oldest seaport of the United States and my parents were always in hospitality. I came into the industry, many ask me, completely by accident. It was never on my radar. The industry, as you can imagine, if you're up in Massachusetts, cruising isn't such a big deal or very well known, at least at that time. Hopefully things have changed since then. But I was really wondering what I would do with the rest of my life. I was in my mid-20s. I had worked in hotels, sales, event planning, trade shows, conventions, and I knew I needed a new direction. And a position came up in a travel agency in Boston, Massachusetts, right in downtown. And I said, what the heck? And I think that that's really the premise of my story and my book, is that you never know where your journey is going to take you. And sometimes you just look at an opportunity in front of you, you believe everything inside of you says it's the right thing, although you're jumping in with both feet and it turns into a completely new adventure, but it might lead someplace you never dreamed you'd ever go.
So there are a lot of CEOs along a lot of different industry verticals throughout the world. Most CEOs you probably don't recognize by name. I did hear just recently somebody referred to Lisa. You just need to know her initials, LL, people, and people know who you're talking about. And your journey has been absolutely fascinating. And as you entered into the cruise line industry, there are a number of challenges that I think you probably faced along your journey, and you proved that you can break those barriers, and you've done amazing things for women in leadership positions, and just seeing that track record. If you think about your journey from where you started to where you are right now, what has been the secret to your success?
Oh my goodness. I started in 1985 in the company that I am still in until April. And I started out as in an entry-level sales position, calling on travel agencies door to door, selling Royal Caribbean cruises and hoping that they would disproportionately support our brand among all the different cruise lines. And then and back to your question, Jim, which is what brought you to South Florida? Well, in 1989, there was a merger. We bought another small cruise line, and it was the first time our company expanded. And they had what they called at the time regional sales managers. They needed 4 of them. They were all based in Miami. I had been about 4 years into my role at that time and decided I probably should think about if I want to move up in this company or go find, again, something else to do, because my attention span is not very long. And so I decided, what the heck, let me throw my hat in the ring for this and see what happens. And knowing I would have to leave Massachusetts, which was going to be a difficult decision for me, but I ended up being selected. And I moved to South Florida in 1989 in a position with the company. I remained in sales for a total of 17 years, and then I moved over to marketing. And I was there for 5 years. And I never thought, well, I honestly never have really thought about my gender. Mostly people make me think about my gender more than I think about my gender. But at that time, when you're in sales and marketing, you don't think about gender. There are a lot of people in really high positions in sales and marketing that are women. And then I made a big change to a completely different brand, Celebrity, in 2005, and a completely different discipline in the company, and that was operations. That's where gender imbalance really slapped me in the face, where I realized I was the only woman on the team. I wasn't really accepted, and everyone on board the ships in any type of position of authority or leadership or power actually were men. And I went into that role because somebody offered it to me. It was a great career advancement. However, it was the smaller brand in the company. So again, it was a big risk for me. But again, I thought, take advantage of this opportunity. It never hurts to learn. And I think that's another lesson in the book. The book is really a leadership book about the lessons I learned along the way. It makes you so much more valuable to yourself and a company when you know a lot of different disciplines that you're working in. At that point in time, I then ascended to senior vice president. It was the first position in the company where I was the first woman, senior vice president of hotel operations. 7 years later, I moved back to Royal Caribbean, again as the first woman as senior vice president of all of operations, which included Marine at the time, which was another learning for me and another great experience. And then 2 years later, I became the president and CEO of Celebrity, first woman in our company to run one of our brands, first woman in the C-suite. And I'll try to just close out so that I'm not talking the whole time, but what I realized at that time was that my gender was a big deal. I worked really hard for 30 years to make it to where I got, and I didn't factor in my gender at all, but people on the outside did, and also women in the company did. It was a big deal that a woman made it to the C-suite in our company. There's a tremendous amount of responsibility that comes with that, and believe me, I feel it all the time. But then when the external world was reacting the way they were, I was a little annoyed because they were making such a big deal of my gender after it was really my competence that got me into the role. And I was pretty overwhelmed by it. But then I decided I was going to just get zen about it and go with it and use it as a superpower, as the ability to have a disproportionate voice, and so that I could bring other women along with me. And that's what I did. I have done a lot for women shoreside, but mostly I've done a lot for women on board the ships who are qualified and competent to get into positions of authority and leadership and power. And my biggest accomplishment in that regard, which is still amazing, was hiring Captain Kate McHugh as the first American woman to ever be at the helm of a mega cruise ship. And she has also transformed the industry and paid it back in a big way.
Everybody knows Captain Kate and her cat, Bug Naked. I've had the pleasure of meeting the cat.
Yeah.
But you also did something rather incredible on International Women's Day one year. And I think we have to talk about that because that, I think, changed the world in many ways. And I know a lot of people are proud of what you did. So maybe you could explain that.
So the wonderful men that I have worked with throughout my career were a big reason, or are a big reason, why we were able to make so many advancements in gender equality, because they were the shoreside leaders and are still the shoreside leaders of our Marine organization, and they were the ones doing all the recruiting and hiring for the people that joined our bridges. And I remember being in an annual operating plan meeting one day, and we were talking about some great opportunities for International Women's Day, and one of the women who worked in PR said, wouldn't it be great if we could have a history-making cruise where 100% of the bridge would be manned by women? And my eyes lit up and I thought, what a great aspiration. And I said, my response was, unbelievably exuberant and excited. And then I said, when do you think we can do that? How many years is that going to take? And our head of Marine was sitting there and he looked at me and he said, I can do it now. Wow. I said, what do you mean you can do it now? And this was in the fall of 2019. And he said, give me 2 weeks and I'll have the bridge manned by women. And I said, have we made enough progress that every single position on the bridge could be manned by a woman for this March? And I think we might have been in August. And he said, absolutely, Lisa. What do you think we've been doing? So on March 8th, 2020, we had a history-making, barrier-breaking cruise on International Women's Day with Captain Kate McHugh at the helm. 100% of the bridge team were women, and every single leader across the entire operation of the ship was a woman.
Incredible.
It was incredible. And you know what was so incredible about it, Jim? I knew it was really important to me. I knew it was important to my team. I knew it was important to PR, and I knew it was important to the women that were actually part of it. But what I didn't realize is how important it was to our guests and how excited, happy, and proud they were to be a part of that cruise and for all that we had accomplished at Celebrity. And I remember it was, I think, Tuesday night, we were in the Grand Plaza. The associate hotel director, Melania, was playing the electric guitar. I think she was playing Led Zeppelin. Captain Kate was pouring martinis, standing on the bar, and I was just standing there watching all the women leaders and all the guests, and they were cheering. And I remember thinking, and this is, this moment is in the book, this could be a mic drop for me. Celebrity had introduced Celebrity Edge, transformed the industry, transformed our brand, transformed the financial performance of our brand. Nobody ever thought we would be able to do it. And look at what we had also done for gender equality, and look at how much our guests and our crew and our team were, how proud and excited they were about that. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, this is a mic drop moment. I never thought in my wildest imagination I could accomplish all of this. The next day I left the ship, it was Wednesday. I got back to the office on Thursday. I was in the office on Thursday and Friday. And we shut down that weekend for 15 months because of the pandemic. And I will tell you, going from that amazing high to a situation that was an unbelievable low that I never thought would happen in a trillion years was, wow, what a range of emotion from, within a span of 3 or 4 days. So, yeah.
Amazing story. And, we were talking earlier about, breaking the glass ceiling, and you really smashed through it. I think before there was DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, you were already doing it. And obviously a lot of corporations are very involved in that today. But early on, I think it was in the mid 2000s or so, when you hired Captain Kate, I was struck by, and doing a little research and background on you, is that in comparison, the first pilot of a commercial airline, and John, you might know this because you're a pilot, was hired in the 70s. And it's amazing that it took Captain Kate already in the 2000s later on to break that. Very male-dominated industry initially. Why was that? Was that ingrained in the industry of ships and building ships and being the captain, and that was such a male-dominated industry? What is your perspective on that?
Well, Captain Kate was the first American woman and the first woman for celebrity to ever be captain. Decades before, there have been women captains. There was a woman captain at Royal Caribbean, for example, and I forget what year, maybe the 80s. She was of Swedish descent. So there have been other women captains, but honestly, they are few and far between. And I think, not unlike pilots, I think women, number one, need to want these things. You need to want these jobs. I remember somebody asking me if I wanted to be president and CEO of a brand in the company when I had to make my career decision, pretty far into my career, not decades ago. But, you really have to say yes and declare it, and then do all the things that it takes to do that. It takes a lot to become a pilot. It takes a lot of hours, takes a lot of training, takes a lot of licenses. On cruise ships, it's quite a different life because you're away at sea for months at a time. And let's face it, women don't opt into that type of a lifestyle to the same degree that men do, even though there are a lot of women crew members on our ships who do leave their families from many different countries around the world because it's a wonderful way to provide for their families in a way that they couldn't before. But you have to have women in the maritime academies, and only 17% of the students in maritime academies are women, and usually only 10% graduate. Then you have to hope these women want to be captains, and then you hope they want to opt into the cruise industry. So there are a lot of barriers to finding great women to be on the ships who are qualified and actually want that type of career. Another interesting story, and one that I'm also really proud of. And I will say that celebrity really blew the lid open on more gender diversity in the industry. More brands started talking about it just because it's the right thing to do. It makes for a much better culture, especially on board. It's very hierarchical. It's somewhat militaristic just because of, the chain of command. At the end of the day, what the captain says goes, because just like a pilot, the number one thing is safety of our crew and our guests. And so you're in an environment where, you have to keep all of these things in mind as you're thinking about how to diversify. And it isn't just gender, it's even nationality, because healthy environments are created by diverse cultures and genders. And English is the first language. If you have too many of the same culture, people become comfortable and speak in their native language. That's not good for safety. So there are so many different reasons why diversity is so important outside of the fact that it's the right thing to do. It's really better for your business and better for your outcomes. And I think that celebrity really led the way in an industry where, they were trying and making a little bit of progress here and there, but making a little bit of progress here and there really isn't in my DNA. I really wanted to do it in a way that was meaningful and that had teeth in it, not just talk about it, but actually do it. And I give so much, I have so much gratitude and for the people that I worked with that actually helped make this happen. And Captain Kate is one of them. She's an amazing advocate for women. She's the most followed captain on social media. She has over 3 million followers. She's a rock star, and she is she's a great representation of how wonderful our industry is.
So she was an easy choice for you then, it sounds
She
like.
was. And I'll tell you the story. I met her when I was the head of operations at Royal Caribbean. She was a staff captain. I met her at a conference. She came up to me during a break. There were a handful of women in the room because all of the leaders were mostly men. She was one of them. She was a staff captain, and oftentimes staff captains are selected because all the captains can't come because they're driving the ship. So Kate was selected as one of the staff captains that would come, and during one of the breaks, she came up to thank me for being in the role, for being a role model. She believed in the culture I was creating and just wanted to let me know that. And from that very brief conversation, I knew she was really special. So I kept asking the person in charge of Marine when he was going to promote her, because we had some captain openings at the time, and I thought she was terrific. And he kept telling me her time will come. Well, it didn't while I was in that role. So when I came over to be president and CEO of Celebrity as a woman, I said, I need a woman captain. And so another gentleman I was working with told me he was a very good friend of Kate's. I said, do you think you could call her? Do you think she would come with me on this journey? And he called her and said, Lisa would like you to come to Celebrity as a captain. What do you think? And she said, hell yes. And I later found out she was a staff captain for 19 years, and I think for 13 contracts in a row, she was the highest rated staff captain.
Wow.
And she still hadn't been promoted. So when I got the chance, I took it and just kept going.
So going back to pilots, the original aviator uniform, if you don't know this, actually comes out of the maritime sector. So it was the sea captains that translated into the captains flying airplanes.
Wow.
Yeah. And Pan Am was the first airline in the world to route the world map, and it all came off of the maritime tracks that eventually went up into the air. So it was kind of neat. So let's talk about making waves. Your book.
My
This is
book.
exciting. A woman's rise to the top using smarts, heart, and courage. Why did you write it? What's the message? What does the world need to know about your book? And I will just note that I did write a testimonial.
You did write a testimonial, a wonderful testimonial, and I truly appreciate it.
I
And
know it was a little long at first, but
I know it was a little long at first. That's okay. I'll take it. All the things you said were so wonderful. And I know you believe them. So that was even more special to me. And I found out before I came here that it's the #1 bestseller on Amazon for women in business books. And so I'm
Congratulations.
really
That's a great,
excited since I only announced it 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. And it's on a bunch of other lists too, but not #1 yet. So I'm hoping it hits there. It is available on Amazon right now, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. Bulk purchases are available through Porchlight. A lot of people have told me they want to buy it for their teams. And, that website is terrific for discounts. But so just like so much of my career and so many of the things that I've done, I never thought I would be the author of a book. It was probably the furthest thing from my mind. But people that I worked with, people that I spoke to, as I explained my journey and some of the things I've been able to do in an industry that nobody thought possible, including myself, everybody said, you need to write a book. And finally I said, okay. And I started thinking about what are the things that I want to get across. And it's not a memoir, although my stories and my experiences are very much a part of each of the 10 chapters. It's really the lessons I learned and what I found to be the most critical for a leader. And when in the very last chapter, chapter 10, when I'm summing it all up, I thought I need to wrap a bow around this. Like, if you had to pick 3 things, what are the things that you think were the most meaningful in all of this, your entire 40-year career in this corporation, which it's very entrepreneurial, even though it's part of a big public corporation. You're building a brand, you're making it relevant, you're responsible for the financial performance of it. You've got to build your team. And Celebrity, was looking for its place, its rightful place. And so it was a great opportunity. And so because I was able to do all this and because I was able to do it for Celebrity, and as I thought back on what I had just written, the 10 chapters, this was kind of the finale of chapter 10, said, what are the 3 things? And I said, intelligence. If you're not intelligent, you can't make it, and you can't do what you need to do. And that comes in many different ways, shapes, and forms, including hiring really smart people to work with you on your journey. And the second was heart. I truly believe culture and heart as a leader are at the forefront of everything that you need to think about to make sure you're successful. Because I believe discretionary effort from someone that you work with is so much more important than just the effort you're going to get anyway, because this is their job and this is what they have to do. And the third, and probably for me the most important and the one that's the most dominant, is courage. It takes so much courage every day to accomplish what you need to accomplish and sort of get to where you want to go. Mine is about my rise to the top. That's not everybody's aspiration, but regardless of what your aspiration is and where you are on that continuum, courage is at the top of the list of what's important. And so I wanted to give back, and my book is really about giving back and sharing my lessons. And honestly, I told you I'm a girl from a small town who never thought I'd get where I did. And my other thing is, come on, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I wanted to give women some confidence and to feel the courage, although it's not, I don't think it's a book for only women. I think men will get a lot out of this. And I've done so much for men in my career as well, even though I'm the poster child for gender equality. But
I love the tips, the smarts, the heart, the courage. I think a lot of people can capture that, whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. It seems like there's a little something there for everyone. Your responsibilities, obviously, as you rose through the ranks, Celebrity Cruise, quite the large cruise, so 30,000 or so plus employees. So this was not, sort of a small effort in a corporate environment. There are tremendous logistics, operations, departments, and it almost seems daunting to run such a large organization. So if those that are listening today that are looking for that, when you were rising through those ranks, and then you got the next promotion and the next promotion, and then you were being sought to sort of be the creator of some ideas. Where are we going next, Lisa? And you had to pull some resources. You mentioned about hiring some smart talent. Where did you find sort of that inspiration yourself on, as you got that next promotion and then starting to come up with the vision of where Celebrity was going next? Where did you draw from some of those points of inspiration?
thank you, Jim. That's that's really thoughtful and a great question, because I do believe if people completely understood the complexity of the cruise industry and all of the different components of it and all of the things that have to go right every minute of every day all over the world, with people that are out, they're in your span of control, but they're thousands and thousands of miles away from you. It's a big deal. And I have a tendency to downplay it and downplay my accomplishments just because that's who I am and just, what's comfortable for me. But it is a big job. And transforming Celebrity, a big job. And it was all tied up in the design and introduction of the Edge series of ships. I knew when I came into my role in late 2014, with this new series of ships on the docket, if you will, 5 of them, that we had to get it right. If we missed on this series of ships, that was it for the brand. It was never going to really accelerate to the degree that it needed to. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of risk to take a time out on the design of those, to say, based on everything I've learned, everything I've done, my sales career, marketing, branding, understanding the consumer, the 7 years I spent in the operation of Celebrity, truly understanding our customer, our brand, where I had already developed ideas about what I think could really make the brand successful. I asked for a timeout on the design of these ships, and we started over. And I worked with our incredible design team. I told them how I was thinking. They rallied around it. I hired an amazing team of people. But it was really the collective experience that I had that I brought to the table. Actually, designing and building the ships is probably one of the favorite parts of my career and my positions that I've had throughout the years. I started it back when I was running incentive sales for Royal Caribbean, just designing the conference centers, and that was fun. And then when I had the opportunity to really put my mark on the brand in the industry, I just knew it had to be great and had to be right. And that's where I go back to gain as much experience as you can, because it's only going to help you make decisions and be successful in whatever it is you're doing. And it also helps you identify the people that you want to do it with. And I also never believed in incrementality. I really believe in going for it. If you have a lot on the line and you really want to make your mark, you have to go for it, whether it's designing the Edge series of ships or improving the gender balance on your ship or repositioning your brand in a way that nobody thought possible, like relaxed luxury. It's a big brand, to your point, Jim. It's 15 ships. It's over 1 million guests a year. And everybody said, you're not going to be able to create this category of one in this relaxed luxury category of one in the cruise industry. And all I need is somebody to tell me I can't do something, and it's going to make me convince people, yes, you can. And I sat back and I thought to myself, if Vegas can do it, if Vegas, this place of all these big hotels where people just go to gamble and big buffets, if they can do it, why can't we? Why can't the cruise industry? Why can't I? Why can't this team? And so I set about doing that. And then we became the first Forbes star rated brand in the industry, the first one. And all Forbes does is validate luxury on, I think, 600 or 800 different measures. So, a lot of this is in your DNA. You know, when I think about myself and I think about what drives me, I love when people tell me something can't be done, because it just convinces me I'm going to prove them wrong, which is another chapter in the book, Watch Me Prove You Wrong, because I think a lot of us meet skeptics along the way. Everyone wants to tell you why you can't do something. That's just the easiest response, from the smallest thing to the largest thing. And I just don't buy that.
It would have been great to have a previous guest that we had on that had that same message using different words, Lil Roberts from Zendu, and it was all about, like, don't tell me I can't. I'm going to tell you that I can, and I am going to do it. And we talked about DNA versus teaching somebody something, and I also believe it's in the DNA. So I'm wearing the celebrity brand today, but you know what's interesting? I love cruising. The reason that I'm a big celebrity fan is because with the leader of celebrity is what made us go to the other side, if you will, from another brand. And I love cruising. My wife loves cruising, but it's not because we're at sea in the sunshine and the relaxation. It's the logistics of the industry that completely intrigue me. And like you said, all of those minute details that the customer doesn't see on the other side, which is just absolutely incredible. So now that the anchors haven't dropped. The anchors are up, and you're still at sea, and you're moving in an amazing direction. What is next for LLP?
I am literally and figuratively writing my next chapter. Another thing I talk about at the very end of the book and the very end of chapter 10, as it relates to courage, is you have to know when it's time to do something else. And it will be 39 years by the time I finally step away from this amazing company, amazing career, and just decide to do something else. And some of that has to do with my age, which is public knowledge. I don't need to give you the number, but you can always look it up. But, I am the, retirement age, but I'm not someone who can retire. So instead of that, I thought, well, I can at least retire from the company after creating an amazing legacy and write my next chapter and do the things that I'm really passionate about. And part of that is what you're all interested and focused on, which is entrepreneurship, because I've gone from, the corporate world to now branching out on my own. And one of the things when people say, so what's next for LLP? My first answer is I'm leaving myself open to the universe. Because one of the things that I have found, even through my network, even from making it to number one within 48 hours of, when I announced my book, is I have I have also established an amazing network of colleagues, employees, people I've made connections with. You can never underestimate the value of those and the impact that you have on people. I often underestimate the impact that I've had on my own career, on my own team, on the crew, and on people I've interacted with. And what I'm finding is that all of the time and energy that I have put into human connections and relationships, regardless of where they've been, is really affording me a lovely way forward for whatever it is that I think I would like to do. Certainly my book is important to me. It was a labor of love. I really do believe that it has so much value in it in terms of the lessons I learned. It's a vulnerable book. It's an honest book. It's not a, oh, everything was pretty. It's no. I mean, these positions are hard to get. Your journey isn't easy. The positions that I've had have been difficult. I didn't always know what I was doing, but I was willing to ask for help. And so as I think about that, I'm sure I'll be on the circuit speaking about it. I'm writing my next chapter and I'm leaving myself open, but I also have a few ideas that aren't fully fleshed out yet because it's still all a little bit new for me. But stay tuned. LLP is not going away.
And I'll just say, since he's here with us today, she has an amazing, funny husband, Andre. I can't see him right now, but I'm sure he's smiling and saying something behind the glass. But I know he's a big support unit, and I think he's probably your biggest cheerleader than me.
He really is. He really is. You're a very close second, though, John, I have to say. But he has been a staunch supporter, a staunch cheerleader for 40 years now. So that's also pretty cool.
And, we were talking about you breaking the glass, obviously in that sort of family dynamic where here's a powerful woman, that's like, I'm going to go forward in my corporate career. And he said, go for it.
Always.
And was incredibly supportive. And obviously he himself broke a mold, if you will, by being a person of, I'm going to empower my wife, my spouse, my better half to do what she loves and to make a difference.
When I was president and CEO of Celebrity, when I was first appointed to that position, he was so excited because he got to call himself the first gentleman. and
self-titled.
He has always been supportive, but he has also been a husband first. And I do recall I did have to ask for my president and CEO position 3 times before I got it. And I will say that my DNA is very different. If you tell me no, I'm going to turn it into a yes. My husband would say, don't worry about it. It's not important. Don't try again. And the only reason he said that wasn't because he didn't want it for me, is he never wanted me to get hurt. And so he was always that person who was cheering, but also a little, no, don't worry about it. It's not that important, honey. You don't have anything else to do or prove but I would say, nope, I'm just gonna keep on going. And ultimately I ended up being successful, and he's been with me every single step of the way. Yeah, it's cool.
I love giving credit where credit's due, and that's a sign of a strong leader. So where you empower your team and you talk about those that help support you along the way, that's wonderful. Amazing inspirations, great stories to share. I'm anxious to read the book. I know John is as well. I know he wrote the part of the prologue and the testimony.
One of the testimonials.
He did. He wrote a lovely testimonial.
So, but I would say, making waves and where all boats rise with rising tides, because you were such a groundbreaking person in your career. So I'd like to thank you for the inspiration and the moments you shared with us today on the podcast. Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, the book is titled Making Waves.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure and an honor and a great conversation. I've loved it. Thank you.
And plug your website so people can find it.
LisaLutoff-Perlo.com. Very simple. Well, not as that simple because it's my long name, but LisaLutoff-Perlo.com. You can find out a little bit about me and also order the book there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.